Good morning, everyone. I am your teacher, Divine Grace Pondon, and welcome to our English class. How are you today?
We are fine, Miss. Thank you for question.
That's great to hear. So today we will read a short story by Anton entitled Ninny, and we will review the terms that we have recalled yesterday and apply it to our storytelling for today. And afterwards, we will do a short oral recitation. Are you guys ready?
Yes, Miss.
Okay, so this story is about a young governess who appears to have an employer who wants to take advantage of her meek nature by taking away her wages and penalizing her for things that she hasn't done. So, have you ever been in a situation where you felt powerless, as if nothing you said or did would change anything? Anyone?
Yes, Miss. Yes, I have been in a situation where I feel powerless and I feel that speaking my mind would not really change anything. I have felt that many times in front of my mom when I am trying to prove a point and she is posing me. At a point, she always gets me and explain how I'm wrong. Or sometimes she does not understand me and so I feel powerless and think that proving my point to her is not worth it. That's
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Perez. Thank you for sharing your experience and takeaways. So, another question. Have you ever treated someone differently because they were young, weaker, or different than you? Were you kind or cruel to them?
Yes, Miss.
Yes, Ms. Papalid.
There are a lot of reasons why kids bully. Some are bullied themselves at home or elsewhere. Others bully only when they feel stressed or overwhelmed. That's it, Miss.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing, guys. I really appreciate it. So now let me read you the short story entitled Ninny by Anton Chekhov. Just a few days ago, I invited Yulia Vasilievna, the governess of my children, to come to my study. I wanted to settle my account with her. Sit down, Yulia Vasilievna, I said to her. Let's get our account settled. I'm sure you need some money, but you keep standing on ceremony and never ask for it. Let me see. We agreed to give you 30 rubles a month, didn't we? 40, answered Yulia. No, 30. I made note of it. I always pay the governess 30. Now let me see. You have been with us for 2 months? 2 months and 5 days, said Yulia. 2 months exactly. I made a note of it. So you have 60 rubles come to you. Subtract 9 Sundays. You know you don't tutor fully on Sundays. You just go out for a walk. And then the 3 holidays. Yulia Vasilievna blushed and picked at the trimming of her dress, but said not a word. 3 holidays, so we take off 12 rubles. Yulia was sick for 4 days. Those days you didn't look after him. You looked after Vanya. Only Vanya. Then there were the 3 days you had toothache, when my wife gave you permission to stay away from the children after dinner. 12 and 7 makes 19. Subtract that leaves 41 rubles, correct? Yulia Vasilievna's left eye reddened and filled with tears. Her chin trembled. She began to cough nervously, blew her nose, and said nothing. Then around New Year's Day, you broke a cup and a saucer. Subtract 2 rubles. The cup cost more than that. It was an heirloom. But you won't bother about that. We are the ones to pay. Another matter. Due to your carelessness, Yulia climbed a tree and tore his coat. Subtract 10. Also, due to your carelessness, the chambermaid ran off with Vanya's boots. You ought to have kept your eyes open. You get a good salary, so we dock off 5 more. On the 10th of January, you took 10 rubles from me. I didn't, Yulia Vasilievna whispered, but I made a note of it. Well, yes, perhaps. From 41 we take 27, that leaves 14. Her eyes filled with tears and her thin, pretty little nose was shining with perspiration. Poor little child. I only took money once, she said in a trembling voice. I took 3 rubles from your wife, never anything more. You did now? You see, I never made a note of it. Take 3 from 14, that leaves 7. Here's your money, my dear. 3, 3, 3, 1 and 1. Take it, my dear. I gave her the 11 rubles. With trembling fingers, she took them and slipped them into her pocket. Merci, she whispered. I jumped up and began pacing up and down the room. I was in a furious temper. Why did you say merci? I asked. For the money, answered Julia. Don't you realize I've been cheating on you? I steal your money, and all you can say is merci. In other places, they gave me nothing. They gave you nothing. Well, no wonder. I was playing a trick on you, a dirty trick. I'll give you your 80 rubles. They are all here in the envelope made out of you. Is it possible for anyone to be such a nitwit? Why didn't you protest? Why did you keep your mouth shut? Is it possible that there is anyone in this world who is so spineless? Why are you such a ninny? She gave a bitter little smile. On her face I read the words. Yes, it is possible. I apologize for having played this cruel trick on her, and to her great surprise, gave her the 80 rubles, and then said merci again several times, always civilly, and went out. I gazed after her, thinking how very easy it is in this world to be strong. That's the end of the story. Now let me see if you really listened to the story, and let us check your comprehension using the 4 levels of questioning. Okay, so level 1. What is the story all about?
The short story, The Ninny, by Anton Chekhov, revolves around the idea on how women were inferior to men during the older ages, with a governess that was very timid and had no power stood there and watched as how the master of the house slowly cheated her of her earnings. As the master of the house decreased the money for false charges, the governess was not able to do anything until the end, where she had been only given an eighth of her earnings. All she was able to say was mercy. In the end, the master was furious that she was not able to stand up for herself, that he had called her a ninny. It seemed that he was playing a cruel trick on her and had paid her the rightful earnings of 80 rubles in the end.
Okay, thank you for that answer, Miss Baras. And that is the the summarization of what is the story all about. Okay, now let's move on. Who are the characters of the story? So I believe that there are only 2 characters in the story, so kindly provide descriptions. Okay?
Yes, miss. Yulia Vasilya she is the governess of her employer's children. Yulia Vasilya is a foolish person. She's timid and weak. She is working as a tutor. Yulia employer is smart and kindness person. At first, she played a trick on Yulia. She just want Yulia know how to fight for herself and how to protect herself in this dirty trick. That's it, miss.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Papalid. And that is our characters in the story. Yulia Vasilyevna and Yulia's employer, which is also the narrator. Okay, now let's move on. Where did the story take place?
Miss?
Okay, Miss Paras.
The The Ninny takes the place in the late 19th century, the time when the author lived. The story takes place in Russia, in a home of a wealthy family.
Okay, so that's right. So, what is the main conflict of the story?
Yes.
Yes, Miss Papalid?
The main conflict in the Ninny is man versus man between Yulia and her employer. He wanted to teach her a lesson about standing up for yourself by cheating her of money that she deserved.
Okay, so that is our main conflict of the story. Thank you for that, Miss Papalid. And now let's go on to the theme of the story.
Miss, the
Yes,
theme of the
Miss?
story is everyone in this world must have a voice and must use this voice to protect themselves. You must be able to stand up for yourself no matter who you are. Every human being deserves justice, and no one in this world doesn't have a right to take this justice away from a person. If you don't speak up for yourself, this may lead to others manipulating you and your rights.
Okay, brilliant answer. Thank you so much for answering for level 1. I really like your answer, guys. So now let's move on to level 2. Okay, now let's move on to level 2. How did the story revolve in the selection? The Ninny identify the sequence of the story. So we have the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and lastly the denouement. Okay, so let's start with the exposition.
Exposition, Miss.
Okay, Miss Refan.
Exposition is Yulia's employers invites her into his study in order to settle their accounts.
Okay, so that is the introduction of the story. So how the story started. So now let's move on to the rising action.
Yes, rising action.
Yes, Miss Papalid.
The rising action is Yulia's employees start accusing Yulia of things that she did not do, decreasing her earnings even more.
Okay, that is the rising action. So that is how the conflict starts to appear in the story. Okay, so what is the climax?
Miss,
Yes, Miss Beth.
the climax of the story takes place when Yulia's employers calls her a Ninny.
Okay, so that's right. So by the way, what is the meaning of Ninny?
A Ninny is a foolish woman or like a stupid person, like easy
Okay.
to trick.
Okay, that's right. So Yulia's employer called her a Ninny because he didn't protest or say anything, even if he knew that he was being cheated on. Okay, now let's move on to the following action.
Yes, miss. The following action is when Julia's employer explained that he was playing a dirty trick on Julia's. He goes on to get mad at her for being suspicious and not standing up for herself. Julia tries to explain that whatever the employer gave her will be better than her last employers who gave her nothing.
Okay, so that's right. That is the following action of the story. Now let's the last part of the story, which is the denouement.
I would like to answer, Miss.
Okay, Miss Paras.
The story resolves when Yulia's employers give her 80 rubles and tells her that she needs to stand up for herself.
Okay, so that's right. And by the way, it is pronounced as rubles, the Russian currency. Okay, that is all for the story plot. And now let's go on to level 3. So this is more on opinion or prediction of the story. So if that cruel trick of the employer is true, what do you think will happen to the governance? Anyone?
Papalid, miss.
Yes, Mr. Papalid.
Yes, miss. In my opinion, I think that Yulia was not a ninny. This story takes place in a time where people of a lower social standing could not stop up for themselves. They would fear their employers because they were not only wealthy but also the ones who supplied their income. In order to keep her job and receive some money rather than nothing like in her past jobs, Yulia timidly let her boss trick her and steal her rebels in hopes that she receives some sort of income. That's it, miss.
Thank you so much for your insight. Now, next question will be why did Yulia thank her employer even though he have cheated on her?
Nimis, Julia still thanked her employer despite of this trickery did because in other places she worked in she didn't receive any payment at all. Also, maybe she realized that she does not deserve those to be paid more because of her shortcomings also.
Okay, so that is very true. Even if it is it's not enough. If others think it's not enough, but for you as someone who receives nothing from the previous employer, you will still be thankful. Okay, now let's move on to level 4. Okay, so what is the advantage and disadvantage of being complacent?
I can say about advantage, miss.
Okay, Miss Palas.
For the advantage of the Ninny is if you become complacent, I mean you will miss important updates and consideration that you should pay attention to. You will be bringing out old stuff when everyone is bringing out the new, their best. Complacency also kills skill to remain the best at what you do. Or even to keep improving, you need to work at it.
Okay, so how about the disadvantage?
Yes, miss. The disadvantage is complacency causes a sense of numbness to hazards. Complacency can be defined as satisfaction, especially when accompanied by an awareness of actual dangers or deficiencies. Complacency is extremely dangerous in the workplace. That's
Okay,
it.
that's very true. So let's go on to the last question. What is the best way to deal with unfair and underpaid employer?
Miss,
Yes, Miss Para?
the best way to deal with unfair and underpaid employer, unfortunately, employers are not always treated fairly. Is true. For example, an employee may be a productive, hard worker who is rarely ever out of working and has a team mentality and an excellent performance record. However, that employee could be the victim of an unfair workplace if their supervisor or boss like to play a favorite. Mostly in the work is there's a favoritism.
Okay, that is very true, and I highly agree with that. Okay, so do you have any questions or clarifications?
None so far, miss.
Okay, that's great to hear. So I hope for the lesson that you have learned a lesson with the story Ninny by Anton Chekhov. So I really appreciate your participation and your comprehension with the story, guys. So hope to see you the next meeting and kindly do some journaling about the story and we will discuss it in the next meeting. Okay?
Okay, miss. Thank you, miss.
Thank you, miss. Thank you.
Very much everyone. and keep safe. See you in my next class.
Bye-bye,
Pass-
Miss.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.